Hey guys, I know, pretty clickbaity sounding title and thumbnail on this video, but I've got the info to back it up. Now, I actually was planning on this video being a little bit shorter, but as I finished writing the script, I have written like 4,500 words, and you're probably looking at the video length right now and being like, oh, this is not very short, actually. Yeah, I ended up writing way more than I thought I was going to, so I hope that you enjoy today because I had a lot to talk about, I guess. We're going to be talking today about the Bequin series. Now, some of you have probably heard of the Bequin series. There are 2 books out. It's a planned trilogy. But my 40k Black Library goat, Dan Abnett, is really taking his time releasing the 3rd book. I've also heard rumors that the 3rd book in the series, titled Pandemonium, will be so fundamentally lore-shattering and game-changing that Games Workshop is needing to take some extra time to prepare new models and finalize their lore game plan. And when I say I've heard rumors, I mean, I saw somebody say that on Reddit, and then I did absolutely no additional research. However, what I did do was read both of the books in the Bequin series recently, and I was so blown away by all the events that have transpired in the series so far, as well as the ending in the 2nd book, that I had to make a video to talk about it. I mostly want to talk about all the really interesting references to Greek mythology found throughout the main storyline of the series, and the implications of the devious tasks being undertaken by the mysterious King in Yellow. So don't worry, this is not a book review. I'm not going to wax poetic about themes or motifs or anything. I'm just going to spoil the main plot points of the series and freak out about all the crazy shit that happened, especially my new favorite character, Comus Nocturnus, who, spoilers start now by the way, is a seemingly genetically manipulated, artificially made blood angel who has wings like Sanguinius, can fly, refuses to wear clothes under any circumstances, and is afflicted with the red thirst. And despite all that, he's still a pretty chill guy. At least he became a chill guy after feasting on the corpses of some weird underworld bone cult dudes. Before that, he was kind of a terrifying, feral, rabid, flying vampire who, again, was completely naked. But let's start a little closer to the beginning. Elizabeth Beta Bequin is the main character of the series, and everything is written from her point of view. She's a psychic null, a blank, who, if born on another planet, may have been recruited into the Silent Sisterhood. But that's the thing. She wasn't actually born. And as she comes to find out, Beta is actually a clone of her mother, also named Beta. How does she discover this? Because the absolutely batshit crazy but also badass Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn tells her. Now, as I said, this will not be a book review. I will not be going into crazy detail on the happenings within the series. I'm going to gloss over most of the important details so I can more quickly get to my own conjectures and crazy conspiracy theories. So with that being said, here is the worst synopsis you've ever heard. A bunch of crazy shit happens, and then more crazy shit happens, and then Beta meets Eisenhorn. Crazy. They begin an investigation into the strange goings-on in Queen Mab, the city in which Beta has lived for as long as she can remember. Now, there are rumblings that Queen Mab has a twin city, or rather had a twin city, called the City of Dust. Originally, Beta wondered if this twin city had truly existed some manageable distance away, but as Queen Mab and the entire planet of Sancor fell ever more so into decay, that the sands of time had buried the Queen's twin in the dunes. It soon becomes apparent, however, that the so-called City of Dust does exist, just not in real space. But we'll come back to that later. Eventually, Eisenhorn does this really creepy occult thingy on a dead lady. I guess it's like a 40k version of a seance, but instead of using a Ouija board, Eisenhorn uses a lot of crazy psychic power and actual magic, and it works. The dead lady's soul is able to communicate with them and provide them with some clues to aid in their investigation in search of the truth surrounding the City of Dust. However, believe it or not, this super creepy seance has some consequences, and while Beta is away from their safe house, it burns down. Not only does it burn down, but the fire is so powerful it catches like 100 other buildings on fire and lasts for like 6 weeks or something. Spooky. Believing Eisenhorn to be dead, Beta finds herself unexpectedly making a new ally out of a former foe, as she reaches out to the Inquisitor known as Ravener. Now, she and Ravener didn't exactly have the best rapport with one another, as Ravener had previously attacked her childhood home/training academy, the Maze Undue, burning it to the ground, killing a lot of her friends, and forcing her into hiding. It was therefore a bit of a risk on Beta's part to contact Ravener, but I mean, the safe house she'd been staying in with Eisenhorn had just caught on fire for 6 straight weeks, which is kind of a pretty good sign of some super powerful entity not being too happy with everything she and Eisenhorn and co were doing, so I think it's fair enough that Beta decided to take some risks. Not much to lose at this point, I guess, right? Anyways, Beta eventually is able to come to trust Ravener and his team, and they begin to uncover even more clues behind the weirdness of the city of Queen Mab. Their series of adventures together see Beta uncovering even more weirdness, and learning that all the people that raised her in the Maison Dieu, who taught her how to conceal her identity, how to become different people, how to fight and kill with extreme precision, were absolutely not who they seemed. What a, well, not surprise. Not really surprising there, I guess. Beta's journey sees her eventually discover what the City of Dust truly is, and not only that, but how to enter it, sort of. And that's where the series ends, leaving us on a really nifty cliffhanger, but also providing us with some absolutely mind-blowing revelations, which I'm going to describe to you and go into more detail on in the next few minutes. So, to start our conjecture, I'd like to talk about the mythological history of Queen Mab. Beta often describes taking less traveled passages to get around the city. These passages are seldom traveled because they are home to the warblind, cybernetically augmented men who are veterans of a long ago war. And we're talking about hundreds of years ago. In fact, from what I remember, nobody in the city actually really knows when the war was, or if it was one of many. They don't even really remember who it was fought against. And the veterans of that war, the warblind, are all semi-feral men who long ago lost their minds and now live by instinct, many of them relying on their cyber enhancements to provide them with strength and the ability to sense anything. What is especially interesting about this mysterious past war, or potentially multiple wars, is the way they are discussed around Queen Mab. Beta hears on multiple occasions about a strange entity known by a few names. The King, the Yellow King, the King in Yellow, and oddly enough, King Orpheus. This name is by far the most interesting because it guides us towards a path that leads down a rabbit hole that I am more than happy to jump into: Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Orpheus is a very multifaceted character. But in the context of our discussion today, I want to focus primarily on his journey into the underworld to save his love, Eurydice. So this King Orpheus in the Bequin series, this mysterious entity who certainly doesn't exist in the physical realm, who's often spoken about in a joking way like, "Ooh, it's been a while since we've been to war. I wonder if old King Orpheus is going to start one up again," could be assumed to be a character who is an analogy for Greek Orpheus, who has left the physical world and ventured into the underworld on a mission to save their true love. Now, I'm going to admit something very brave to you all right now. I haven't read the entire Heresy series yet. I'm working my way towards it, and I love the 40k universe with all my heart, and I love the 30k time period. But come on, there's like 50 books, and I'm only one man. So I haven't read firsthand what I'm about to tell you, and I hope you can forgive me. When I think of any characters who lost the one person in the galaxy who they cared about with all their heart, soul, and spirit, I think of the Custodes. I think we all do. The Custodes were designed by the Emperor to be his ultimate companions. He literally created a whole squad of brochachos. And when the Emperor was interred on the Golden Throne following his battle with Horus, the Custodes were inconsolable. They had failed, each and every one of them, in the only task that truly mattered in their lives, to keep Big E alive. And there was one custodian above all who felt the pain of the Emperor's loss more than anyone else. Although the Custodes vowed to never leave the Emperor's side again, guarding him even as his physical body would decay for the many following millennia, on one fateful night, Constantine Valdor, the first custodian and the Emperor's closest companion, simply left behind his very few belongings, along with his armor, and left the imperial palace, vanishing without a trace. For around 10,000 years, Valdor simply did not exist. But as we look more deeply into Beta Bequin's story as she searches for the truth behind the City of Dust and the King in Yellow, King Orpheus, his true identity as Constantine Valdor goes from being a likelihood to practically being a guarantee. Of course, we've only looked at the first half of Orpheus' story. He lost his love and went on a perilous quest to save her. Valdor lost his love, the Emperor, and vanished into the darkness, presumably on a quest to save him. I should point out too, before we get too far into my yab sesh, that Beta also recovered a book written in the language of the Mechanicus, Lingua Technis, that was filled from the front to the back with highly compact writing. And I'm not going to explain why she knows the book is important and how it's proven within the story. It just is. You can see, you can read the series and see all the crazy ways that Abnett ties the mysterious book into the story. And also, I can't remember where she finds the book, but it's important. Trust me, it is very important. Beta enlists the help of a genius yet almost insane mathematician to decode the book, and when he finally reveals to her the first 2 words on the first page, we get our confirmation of Orpheus's identity. Those first 2 words are none other than Constantine Valdor. And the book is, in fact, a written transcription of his entire name, as custodian names are ludicrously long and grow throughout their lives, with the custodians engraving them on their armor as they go. I guess since Valdor left all his armor back on Terra, he decided to start a diary, and then promptly lost it? I don't know. You know, like I said, I can't remember if they explain exactly why that book was there, but it was, yeah, it's Valdor. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Beta speaks to many of Queen Mab's strange inhabitants over the course of her investigations, first with Eisenhorn and then with Ravener. Now, one thing that she is told by one of the city's strangely connected citizens is that they wonder what King Orpheus is up to. They pontificate that perhaps he chases goals of a higher meaning than most mortals could comprehend. One of these goals, they say, could even be discovering the true name of the greatest being in the galaxy, the God Emperor. You may have just realized, oh yeah, I wonder what the Emperor's actual name is. We don't know. Nobody knows, obviously. The only person who knows the true name of the Emperor of Mankind is, well, the Emperor of Mankind. And he's, well, look at him. The more 40k lore you read, the more you'll realize the in-universe importance of knowing one's name. Not just knowing one's name, knowing one's true name. To know one's true name grants power over them. Those with strong connections to the warp can use this power to their advantage. And those who are extremely strongly connected to the warp could use the power of an adversary's name to do, well, pretty much anything. Throw them around, kill them, banish them, separate their soul from their body and send it into the warp to be torn apart by demons, or maybe even revive them. So we know at this stage that Orpheus, the King in Yellow, is Valdor. And if he has ventured into the underworld in search of the means through which to save his love, the Emperor, he must be in the immaterium. He must be within the warp. It seems fair to assume, then, that the City of Dust is where Valdor resides, that it is within the immaterium, and that it shares its location with Queen Mab. Because remember, the immaterium is essentially a parallel dimension, meaning that the two can coexist on top of one another, within one another, around one another. Beta has been searching for the location of the City of Dust for so long, and yet, in a way, she was already in it. Not really, but kind of. You know how the warp works. So, what do we think Valdor is truly up to? Is he on a mission to learn the Emperor's true name in order to somehow revive him? To allow his now near infinitely fractured spirit to recoalesce and re-enter his shattered body? To heal him of his warp-imbued wounds and retake his place as humanity's one true leader? Is he hoping that by learning his name he can grant the Emperor the time and ability to allow himself to be reborn in a physical form once again? Or one thought that I saw while researching this video. Valdor holds the Apollonian Spear, a weapon that once stabbed into literally anything, allows him to learn everything there is to know about that thing. If it's a living being, he is granted their knowledge and their experience. If it's a non-living thing, he is granted the knowledge of that entire thing's history. Is Valdor preparing his own body to be a vessel powerful enough, knowledgeable enough, and wise enough to hold the Emperor's spirit within it, allowing him to once again walk among the star systems of the Imperium and leave behind his broken corpse back on Terra? I truly have no clue. And seeing as this is 40k, and the Emperor coming back would kind of ruin all things, and the Emperor coming back would actually kind of ruin all of the lore of the last 40 years. Like, the whole thing with 40k is the Emperor is dead, sort of. I'll be honest, I don't think Valdor will be bringing Emps back. So, what could Valdor, our version of Orpheus, be doing? Obviously, we won't know until the final book is out, but I have a very strong feeling that Valdor is working on the side of humanity. Even though he's made this crazy city in the Immaterium, I just can't see him aligning with chaos in any way, shape, or form. So I am very excited to see how Abnet concludes this story. Now, I don't think you're supposed to say this as a YouTuber, but that was really the main point of this video. You can see it goes on for quite a bit from this point. We're like kind of just about halfway through. So clearly I have more to talk about, but it's going to get quite a bit more convoluted from here on out. So yeah, I mean, please keep watching if you're liking it so far, but just be warned, I don't think the rest of the video will make as much sense as the first bit, because I'm going to be kind of grasping at straws here as we go. But they are very entertaining straws, I have to tell you. I think, anyways. Okay, cool. If you thought our allusions to Greek mythology ended with a reference to Orpheus, you are mistaken. I mentioned earlier that I have a new favorite book character, mostly because I think the way he is described is equal parts insanely cool, terrifying, and actually objectively hilarious, and I want to discuss him next. Of course, I'm talking about Comus Nocturnus. And I know I said this isn't a book review, and I don't want to just describe what happened in the books, but this was by far my favorite part in the series, so I'm going to do a little describing for you guys. But we'll make it quick. Don't worry. When Beta is trying to find a lost friend of hers, Renner Lightburn, who had his mind wiped and had to resort to taking part in a strange, death-defying gambling ring to survive, she ends up stumbling upon, or rather is almost torn apart by, Comus Nocturnus, and I'll explain how. She finds out that Renner has started to take part in this weird underworld foot race series, I think, that's the best way to describe it. The contestants in the race, all of them down on their luck, enter the debilitatingly dark and creepy subterranean catacombs of Queen Mab, with one goal in mind: to reach the exit first. Bets are placed by the city's most fanatic degenerates, and the first participant to reach the exit wins. Quite often enough, it's not even a case of who reaches the exit first. Harrowingly often, the winner is simply the only one who makes it. And it's not uncommon that the bet placers waiting at the finish line leave disappointed, as nobody appears at all. Anyways, Beta's told all this and is like, yeah, okay, bet, and just yeets herself into the catacombs. She somehow miraculously manages to find Renner eventually. Well, actually, he finds her, and then they find themselves lost. Renner at this point had actually competed in the foot race multiple times and had even begun to familiarize himself with the catacombs. But after they're ambushed by this super creepy weird cult of subterranean psychos who make gross sculptures out of the human bones in the catacombs, they get knocked off course. They eventually find themselves at what they think is an exit. It's a doorway, and through it, Beta can hear the subtle lapping of the waves on a beach at the edge of a vast sea. But as they get closer, they see that the ocean through the doorway is truly endless, that there is no sign even of a horizon. And also they're underground, so this is all very weird. And as they turn back from the doorway to continue their search for an alternate exit, they hear the shriek of a faraway bird. They turn back to the doorway and see, flying across the vast ocean, a figure with beautiful white wings spread in flight. It shrieks again as it closes the distance to the doorway. Beta realizes it's not a bird. It has a human form. It screams once more and flies through the doorway, landing majestically on 2 human feet. But it is not human. It's a giant, taller than any person Beta had ever seen and hewn with dense muscle from its toes to its head. Its hair is long and black. Its skin is porcelain white. The angel they see in front of them turns to look at them. Beta at this point is actually pretty excited. She's like, oh my god, an angel. This is sweet. Finally, something cool, something good. Finally, something nice, you know? We've got this angel over here. Well, the angel they see in front of them turns to look at them. It opens its mouth and reveals long fangs. Then Beta sees through the hair that obscures its face that its eyes are devoid of anything but glossy blackness. It unfurls its wings and leaps through the air at them, shrieking once more, desperately craving their blood. Too bad for him, though. Beta's a blank, remember? I also forgot to mention this, but she has a special cuff on her wrist that can turn her blankness on and off, which is pretty neat. Anyways, she turns her blankness on, and immediately a bubble of complete psychic inertia surrounds her. Well, I guess a lack of psychic anything surrounds her, Renner, and the jacked, naked, psycho vampire angel. The angel is not a fan at all, and freaks out, falling down a huge flight of stairs. Yeah, it's funny. Beta and Renner are able to continue their attempt to escape, but are once again confronted and surrounded by those weird, creepy bone cult people. As they desperately fend them off in a losing battle, who else reappears but their old pal, the terrifying naked angel vampire, who actually does them a huge solid and just starts completely tearing apart the bone cult people. And look, I know I'm kind of doing this recap in a jokey way. I like to try to be funny around here. Emphasis on try. But in all honesty, there is no way I can do this whole encounter justice at all. I actually implore you, please read the series or at least read the second book, or even see if you can find this excerpt online. Not that I would support reading the book without buying it, right? Games Workshop. It's in book 2, chapter 11. But this whole scene is so cool. I think anything with blood angels is cool though, so maybe I'm biased. Anyways, the psycho vampire angel literally tears these bone guys apart and begins to feast on their corpses. The book describes his desperation to consume blood in a way that is reminiscent of someone who's been stranded in a desert for a week being given a bottle of ice water. He's completely animalistic and clearly starving, which makes what happens next even more shocking. He finishes dispatching all the bone cult people. He drops the corpse that he has been consuming and turns to face Beta and Renner and speaks, like, really calmly, and he seems ashamed. He tells Beta that he's sorry he tried to kill them, that he'd been suffering from a many years-long red thirst, and that he had now slaked it. He also tells her his name, Comus Nocturnus. Now, admittedly, I didn't think much of his name when I first read the series, other than, oh shit, cool name. But believe it or not, Comus has a far deeper meaning than you may have thought. And this is where we can tie back in to the Greek mythology, baby! Yeah, I love Greek mythology. Orpheus, Greek Orpheus, not 40k Valdor Orpheus, had a long history with a Greek god named Dionysus. Dionysus is, amongst many other descriptions, the twice-born son of Zeus, the king of the gods. He has died and been reborn, resurrected. Dionysus also has a son named Comus. Now we can don our fanciest tinfoil hats and connect the conspiracy theory dots here and see who fits the bill. Zeus is the king of gods. The emperor in the 30th millennium, back before Horus decided to be the dumbest bitch idiot in the history of the galaxy, was essentially the king of his own band of gods, or at least demigods, the Primarchs. Dionysus seems in some ways to be a Christ-like figure, especially considering his death and resurrection. Who of the Primarchs was the golden child, the beautiful, morally upright angel of light? Who of the Primarchs could we call Space Jesus? Well, our boy, Sanguinius. And just as Comus is the son of Dionysus, the blood angel Comus must be a son of Sanguinius, right? Well, I gotta say, these conspiracy theory dots are looking really well connected right now. So we could somehow make a huge assumption here and throw out the idea that maybe, just maybe, Valdor is actually trying to find the means to resurrect Sanguinius. Although Sanguinius has been canonically super dead, like I don't think revivable at all type dead, they are bringing back hella Primarchs lately, and this may signify the most shocking return yet. Sanguinius seems to be the most logical choice behind Guilliman to lead the Imperium, and in a galaxy where the Emperor is God, he is, like I said, Space Jesus. But now, this is why I say that this portion of the video is a little convoluted, because while everything I told you just now is factual, I left out a lot of details. If you Google Dionysus, you'll see that he's the god of a whole lot of things that don't really fit with Sanguinius' character. Not only that, but Orpheus, after not being able to save his wife, fell into a massive depression and was just really sad forever, actually. And Dionysus got pissed off at how sad Orpheus was and sent a bunch of women to kill him, which is kind of crazy. Not to mention, Valdor, along with all the other Custodes, thought the Primarchs were stupid. They hated them. And I mean, to be fair, 9 of them did engage in a galactic civil war against the Emperor within like a couple hundred years of being created, so that's actually an extremely valid point. This is a side tangent right now, but when you really think about it, is that not crazy? The Great Crusade lasted like 250 years at the most, and in that time, the Emperor, who had been alive for 40,000 years, found all of his sons, erased 2 of them from history, and then had 9 of his remaining sons all try to kill him and destroy humanity. That's a rough 250 years for a 40,000-year-old guy. Extremely valid opinion from the Custodes then. So why would Valdor want to resurrect a Primarch, even if that Primarch is just, so beautiful? I don't know. So, as you can see, a lot of this just doesn't line up with literally anything at all, including the fact that Dionysus could also be thought of as Guilliman, who literally did die and was resurrected. So, whatever. If you ignore all of those really important details, this is a pretty fun little fan theory to hold on to. And personally, I have to say, I am a huge hater of the whole, well, we didn't literally see this guy die 100% for certain, so he could just maybe come back, actually, thing that we seem to do in every movie nowadays. The lack of certain death just makes deaths pointless, in my opinion, especially as Sanguinius' death was so important in the story of Horus's defeat. Like, he knew he was going to die. He sacrificed himself to put that tiny little bit of damage into Horus's armor, which allowed the Emperor to breach it and defeat Horus and save humanity. But I am nothing if not a massive hypocrite. Great quality to have, by the way. So that being said, I gotta be honest with you guys. If this insane and likely incorrect fan theory is true, and Valdor is going to resurrect Sanguinius, I will be very honest with you. I'm so down. I mean, I'm a huge Blood Angel simp. My favorite skin to rock in Space Marine 2 is Death Company, and Sanguinius is by far my favorite Primarch, so I think I could make the exception this one time. And I want to finish off by saying I do have faith that Games Workshop, and especially Dan, the undisputed GOAT of 40k novels, Abnett, will do a good job with the final book in this series, no matter what direction they take it. But with all that said, this script has ended up being like twice as long as I thought it would be, so it's time to wrap this video up. And if you made it all the way to the end, please leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe to see more videos like this. And actually, on that subject, I haven't done a video like this before, where I kind of ramble and share my thoughts on aspects of the lore. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video style, because I'd love to do more like it in the future. And of course, until next time, thank you so much for watching. See ya!